If I had a pantheon of the top questions I've been asked for over 2 decades about Royal Caribbean, one of them definitely has to be, will I be disappointed if I go on an older, smaller, less new cruise ship out there? A lot of people get their start on a brand new ship, like an Icon or even an Oasis class ship, right? Like a Wonder, Utopia, something like that. And they get into it. They do, maybe 2, 3 cruises, but they gravitate towards these newer, bigger ships. And so inevitably people ask, am I going to be disappointed? Is it going to be a problem if I try to go on an older ship? Actually, my favorite is when they phrase it along the lines of, will I be disappointed if I go on a smaller ship, and then point out like Freedom of the Seas as a smaller ship, which of course I giggle about because I'm a cruise nerd and I don't think Freedom of the Seas is a small ship at all, but smaller, relatively speaking, yes, that's an accurate way of describing it. Nonetheless, will you be disappointed with a older ship? The answer is yes and no. It really depends on your perspective. I think when a lot of people go from a brand new ship to an older ship, they come at it from a different perspective because they're used to, quite frankly, the latest and greatest. That is one of the best reasons to go on a new big ship. That's what Royal Caribbean kind of advertises, right? When you watch those commercials, you're seeing all these amazing things to do on board, and not all those things are necessarily available on smaller ships. The thing is, when you go on a smaller ship, you are gaining a couple of advantages, which I think can at least maybe not make up for the differences, but certainly stand out as a good reason to try an older, smaller ship. As an example, number one, you're probably going to pay less for a smaller, older ship. And again, smaller, older is more of a slash, not a comma. It could be one or the other. And what I mean by that is you're paying a premium for brand new ships. You will pay way more for Star of the Seas than you will for Freedom of the Seas, or you will for Brilliance of the Seas. And so for me, at least, in a lot of cases, when I look at the price difference, I can make my peace with maybe missing out on not having the Aquadome market or being able to go to, playmakers, because I'm saving so much more money by going on one of those older ships. In addition, where the ship goes is arguably even more important than what the ship has to offer. Now, I'm all about the ship as a destination. This is especially true when I'm on an Oasis or an Icon class ship. But if I want to go to Europe, if I want to go to Alaska, I am more than willing to move down, if you will, to a smaller, older ship, because the places you're visiting are totally worth it. And that's a really big distinction. Probably the biggest issue is if you're traveling with kids, especially younger kids, and the amount of things to do on board. If your kids are certainly used to having the array of activities and amenities and space in Adventure Ocean that you'd find on the bigger ships, it can be a bit of culture shock going to a smaller one. I mean, if you ever been to Adventure Ocean on the Vision class, Aquanauts and Explorers are separated by a curtain. Like not a wall, a curtain. It's bizarre. But it's a bit of an outlier situation there. Now, obviously, you're not going to have on smaller, older ships, nearly as many amenities, water slides, the flow rider. They still have a rock climbing wall, and they'll still have a sports court. But again, the amount, the variety of activities will definitely be diminished on there. And I think that's probably where you run into the biggest differences, because all Royal Caribbean cruise ships today have, at least 3 or 4 specialty restaurants on board, and they have a couple different venues to go to. Maybe you don't have Studio B ice skating rink, but you still have the Colony Club or something like that has, somewhere else to go to. But for kids and parents who are used to a certain level of amenities, I mean, as an example, if you have young kids and you've only done the Icon class ships, and Surfside Neighborhood has been like your favorite place on earth because it makes it so much easier for your family to enjoy the cruise, it's going to be different if you go on an Oasis class ship, which doesn't have that. But yeah, that's going to be the biggest issue. Now, I would argue that plenty of families, including my own, have gone on smaller, older ships and still come back home with wonderful memories and a good vacation. It's an adjustment. And this is true for really anybody of any age. You just have to have the right expectations and the right plan of action. Number one, when you go on a smaller, older ship, I would recommend obviously looking into what amenities, what features it has, and what it doesn't have. I remember, and I've shared the story, I think, a number of times. I was on Brilliance of the Seas, and I was hanging out in the solarium, and I struck up a conversation with another gentleman. I didn't know this person at all, and we were just talking about cruises, blah, blah, blah. And then he kind of mentioned, he's like, well, I'm really disappointed in this ship. And I thought, that's interesting. I'm just like, well, I'm on the ship. I'm having a good time. And I asked him, oh, really? Why are you disappointed? He goes, oh, well, we were just on Oasis of the Seas, and, this ship is nothing like that. And then, of course, I thought to myself, well, yeah, of course. Like, it is nothing like that. But as I thought about it more, it really speaks to the fact that he had the wrong expectations. He came into this cruise with trying to compare the two, or certainly thinking that Brilliance would be similar to or akin to Oasis of the Seas. Now, maybe I'm putting words in his mouth, but to me, when I go on a different kind of ship, and as an example, I'm recording this episode, in just a couple weeks, I'll be going on Brilliance of the Seas, which is a smaller, older ship, Radiance class. And then about a week later, I'll be going on Star of the Seas, one of the newest ships in the fleet. So obviously a huge difference in experiences there. But I think it's really about your perception and your expectations as to how you plan any ship that's out there. Now, certainly, if there is a feature on board that is make or break for you, then I would be the first to tell you shouldn't go on that ship. This is no different than if you were to purchase a car or go to a resort and there's something you really want with that car or resort. Well, then obviously you need to get something that caters to your needs right there. And so if you're like a flow rider junkie, you love the flow rider, well, obviously don't go on a ship that doesn't have a flow rider. If you have young children and not having a splashaway bay would be a problem, then don't go on that ship. In fact, this reminds me, as I'm talking about this, we went on Jewel of the Seas back in 2013 when I only had one kid, and at the time she was 3 years old. And I remember we went on there, and we had a great time on that cruise, but we were there with friends, and they kind of were like, well, we had a nice time, but next time we need to go on a cruise ship that has more for them to do, like in terms of like play on the pool deck, because they didn't have a splashaway bay or at the time an H2O zone or a pool for them to use. So that was something that really, stands out. And I think that's really important when you're researching. And this is why I talk about this all the time. And granted, it's a little self-serving because I got a blog about it. But really, the advantage is by understanding what the ship has to offer, it helps you decide if really you'd be disappointed or not. So on the surface, will you be disappointed with an older, smaller ship? No, of course not. But I do think you need to look at what it has to offer and what it's lacking, what it also maybe has an advantage of in some cases. Price is a big one. I mean, I can overlook a lot of things, but if I can save, a couple $1,000, couple $100, yeah, I'm willing to overlook some other features on board that may be lacking. And in other cases, I do find that older, smaller ships are kind of like a fine wine, As you start cruising, you're probably drawn to big, new, amazing. That's what draws you. And I think it's what Royal Caribbean is trying to market it towards, right? They want their biggest, newest ships to be hey, this is your perfect excuse to try a cruise. But as you cruise more, and probably after 3 or 4 sailings, you start to think to yourself, well, this is great. What else is there? What else can I do? And I think to that point, when you start to look at the other ships in the fleet, and this is probably where this question comes up, is will I be disappointed if I go on them? Your brain has already started to conjure up this idea of would it be possible to go on another ship and try more things? And the second you have that taste, that drive, that hunger for more and different, I think you're already in the right space. What I wouldn't recommend is if you're still in that, the only way I'm having a good time is if I'm on the biggest, newest ships in the world, and I don't care about necessarily going to more exotic locales. I'm just looking for a fun week-long vacation, and I'm used to what I'm used to. I like what I like, and that's it. Then you're probably not quite there yet. But when you start to think about, you read, obviously, things on RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, you see all these people talking about, on Reddit and in message boards, we've been on this ship or that ship, and it looked kind of cool, and it kind of stood out there. Okay, cool. Then you're probably then in the right mindset to open yourself up to one of those bigger, newer ships. It's time for listener questions. This is the part of the episode where I answer emails you've sent me. Our first email is from Lisa Cooley. Hey, Matt, I have a question for you regarding the main dining room. I've been on several cruises and have always selected a timed seating for my cruises. We have an upcoming sailing on Icon with friends this summer. There are a total of 8 of us, and our friends will be first-time cruisers. They really don't want to set a time for eating, but I find it much more enjoyable. If we do my time dining, how does it work? Can I still book reservations? Or is it always going to be an hour wait if we go this route? Good question. The answer is you actually have the choice. So with my time dining, you can either make a reservation in advance or on board the ship, or simply wait in line. There are 2 lines, basically. People with a reservation, people without a reservation. And if you make a reservation, you can either pre-book it before the sailing in the cruise planner, or if you're on board the cruise, you're just call the number like, hey, can I make a reservation for 7 o'clock tonight and this many people. And basically there are 2 lines in the main dining room. One for people with a reservation, one for people without. People with a reservation are seated first. The problem is, I kind of agree with you, Lisa. I still prefer the regular traditional dining over my time for one reason. Because when it's your dining time, you just walk in the dining room, there's no waiting, and your table's waiting for you. With my time, there can be lines, especially if you're trying to have dinner at a peak time. I get what your friends are thinking. I certainly would think the same thing, but I would probably lean towards or try to push them towards traditional because, yes, of course, nobody wants to have dinner always, at the same time. And yes, 5 o'clock is too early and all this, but I still feel like despite all that, having the convenience of having your table ready, not having to wait in line, not having to make reservations is the way to go. If you do go with my time dining, Lisa, definitely make reservations. Do not wait in the standby line unless you want to roll into dinner at 8:30. If you want to do that, well, there'll be no line there because no one wants to eat dinner at 8:30. So there you go. Next email is from Ian Tewksbury, aka Tukes Vegas from New Hampshire. Matt, thanks again for all the hard work you do. My wife and I are taking our first Mediterranean cruise on Explorer this season in May. I wanted to ask you a question about wine and bringing it on board for personal use as well as bringing them home as a souvenir. I think I understand how it works, but I'm looking for you to confirm. If I want to drink any wine while on the cruise that I bring on board, that can only be done on embarkation day. Yes, correct. Royal Caribbean allows you to bring up to 2 bottles of wine. Actually, that's not true. That's the old rule. Royal Caribbean allows you to bring up to 1 bottle of wine per adult on embarkation day only. Ian then goes on, we can bring 2 bottles of wine per stateroom, not per person. No, it's just 1 bottle per adult. If you have 4 adults in your room, then it's 4 bottles of wine. Any wine on embarkation day in excess of 2 bottles per room will be held until the very last morning on disembarkation day. Yes, generally that's supposed to be the rule anyway, whether or not they enforce it. But to your next question, any bottles of wine we bring in port will be held by security until disembarkation day. Yes. So if you buy wine on board or on shore somewhere, and we're on board for that matter, that's not true. You buy it on shore. If on board, you can drink it on board. But if you buy wine in port, then they'll confiscate it and give it back to you on the very last day of the cruise. And if you buy wine in port, then, as I mentioned, they confiscate it and you can't drink it on board. If you buy a bottle of wine on the ship, through a bar or restaurant, you can then, of course, have that at dinner or what have you. And you didn't ask the question, but I'll answer it anyway. Bottles of wine you bring on board, if you drink it only in your stateroom, then there's no corkage fee. But if you bring it to a bar or restaurant, they will charge you a corkage fee for it. It's a one-time thing. And there you go. So, thank you, Ian, for the question. Next email is from Kimberly. Hi, Matt. First of all, thank you for all the wonderful and informative facts and tips. You've made cruising so much easier for us. I recently saw Royal Caribbean will be not going to Labadee for the remainder of the year. We have a trip planned in February of 2027 that has Labadee as one of our ports. We're not feeling very positive about that happening. My question is, since Royal Caribbean already knows they're going to have a change in itinerary, they will be actively looking and booking a different port of call instead of giving us an extra sea day. Thanks for your time. Oh, right. That was the question. Will they be doing that? It's hard for me to know exactly what Royal Caribbean is thinking. And with Labadee, it's very interesting. So up until recently, Kim, Royal Caribbean, when they would make changes like this, they wouldn't be making 6 months worth of cancellations. They would do it more on a rolling basis or much more close in, right? So now they're in a different situation. And quite frankly, in all my years of covering Royal Caribbean, I don't remember a situation in which they canceled cruises quite this often, this far in advance. The most I've ever seen is Royal Caribbean would be I remember there were political turmoil in Turkey. So for that summer, they wouldn't go to Turkey, right? But that was 3 months and it all happened, the cancellations happened very close in. In this situation, we are talking about cruises that have been canceled now, 9 months from now. And to your point, you're looking into 2027. I think Royal Caribbean and let me answer your question. To answer your question, I have no idea. So I don't want to, give you any false hope or dissuade you or make you think that I know anything more than you do. So the answer to your question is I have no idea. However, Royal Caribbean does look at it a couple of ways. I think number one, you booked a cruise that's supposed to visit Labadee. I think in their heart of hearts, they want to deliver on that. I mean, not only do they want to make sure they're giving you the cruise you booked, but also because, they're going to make more money if your cruise ship visits Labadee than if it visits anywhere else. So there's that aspect to it. There's also the reality, and you just alluded to it, right? I mean, they've canceled now, well over a year of visits to Labadee. This is not going to be a surprise that, we get into 2027. That'll be the case. My hope, Kim, is that there is some truth to what you're asking. Like, because they have so much lead time that they would think, oh, we'll now look for alternative ports to get into. It's possible. What's interesting, and I've only had some like ancillary examples of this, like more anecdotal than anything else, what I'm trying to say. But cruise port planning is a multi-year process. Like Royal Caribbean, they've got a team that's already looking at itineraries 5 to 10 years from now. Now they're not booking port stops there, granted, but like they're well beyond like the planning. So it's not to say that like there's all of a sudden if you're assuming that in 2027 there's already port schedules open and ports available to go to, not necessarily. Remember, Royal Caribbean's sailing schedule is already out through early 2028. So all of 27 is really accounted for in a lot of cases. I think Royal Caribbean, if they were to cancel, would absolutely try to get you something else. I mean, they clearly demonstrated that with the cancellations, that most of the cancellations have had replacement ports, not sea days. Not all of them. In fact, I'm on a cruise on Legend of the Seas this winter, and we've already had our Labadee stop replaced with a sea day, unfortunately. So it's not to say that it happens all the time, but yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this one. So I hope that kind of makes some sense. Next email is from Mark and Tracy. Hey Matt, my husband and I followed you for a couple of years now, love all your content. I noticed a week ago on Cruise Mapper, they have Icon 4 listed as Hero of the Seas. I haven't heard any announcements from Royal Caribbean, so wondered if you had any inside info. I wouldn't think they would make up a name to put on their site. Thought it was interesting. Yeah, we've seen this in the past before. I forget what ship it was, where we've seen this where everybody and their mother thought, I don't know if it was Star or something. They all thought it was going to be Apex of the Seas, and it ended up not being the case. The bottom line is, I've seen it too. I think in a lot of cases, a lot of these websites use conjecture as fact, or they rely on, I don't know what. I mean, Cruise Mapper, to their discredit, doesn't actually, show any proof. They don't explain why they do what they do. And so people go with if it's on the internet, it must be true route. I am not saying, by the way, that Icon 4 will not be named Hero of the Seas. I have no clue. It certainly makes logical sense. Icon, Star, Hero. Okay. 4 letters, all that stuff. Anyway, Legend doesn't fit in there, but you know what I mean? Like, it seems like it would be a good fit. But that doesn't necessarily mean it is going to be the name of it. In some cases, the rumor mill is right. In some cases, the rumor mill is wrong. I haven't heard any announcement. Right. There's been no announcements. I have not heard anything from Royal Caribbean. So we shall see. When it comes to those kinds of things, though, I usually just wait for the announcement. I mean, I'm not going to get into there's so many rumors out there, and some of them end up being correct from the get-go, and some of them just are crazy wrong. So it'd be interesting. I don't hate Hero of the Seas as a name, quite frankly. I think it's actually a decent name, and I think it does fit the mantra of Icon, Star, Legend. Hero, I think, is along those lines. So, yeah. Cool. Our next email is coming to us from Trudy. Hey, Matt, I started watching your videos for 3 reasons. You have a great voice and engages the listener. You have extensive first-hand knowledge of Royal Caribbean. And finally, we're going on our first cruise with Royal Caribbean in November on Legend of the Seas. My question is regarding parking at the terminals at Port Canaveral and Port Miami. In your opinion, do you think it's more cost-effective or convenient, or both, to park at the port rather than offsite parking? Trudy, first, thank you for the compliments. Second, I definitely believe it's better to park at the cruise terminal. Yes, you'll pay more money than the offsite parking. My problems with offsite parking is a couple of things. Number one, you don't save that much money. It's a little bit of money, and a little bit of money adds up, so I get it. But I don't think it saves that much money. Number two, more importantly, forget the money thing for a second, Trudy. I hate shuttles. Every time I've ever parked off-site, here's the situation. We park the car. There's a bunch of people already waiting for a shuttle. The shuttle arrives. It's jam-packed. I gotta wait for another shuttle. I don't want to wait for a shuttle. And you know when I don't want to wait for a shuttle even more? On the last day, on the morning, like when the cruise is over, and now you gotta wait for it. You're tired, you're cranky, you're upset the cruise is over, and now you're gonna wait for a shuttle to take you back to your car? Heck no. I just want to get in my car and be on my way and be done with everything. And you know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's just me. I think for the convenience alone, it is worth it to park at the port. I will also point out in Port Miami, for what it's worth, and I'm generalizing here, but there have been, over the years, enough reports of cars being broken into in Port Miami, or offsite parking rather, not Port Miami, at offsite parking in Miami, that I've been turned off for it. That being said, plenty of people, I'm sure plenty of listeners right now, Trudy, have parked offsite in both Miami and around Port Canaveral and have had no problems with it. Personally, this is one of those situations where I actually think my time is worth more to me than saving money on parking. And usually, I am a convenience kind of guy. Maybe this actually makes sense when I think about it, but in this situation, I think it is worth paying more to park at the ports. It's just so much easier, really and truly, especially when the cruise is over in the morning. And this happens every time in Port Canaveral because I walk right by the parking shuttles. I think to myself, thank goodness I do not have to wait in a line in order to get to my car. I just want to be on my way. Last question of the day is coming to us from Andrew from St. Louis, Missouri. Hey, Matt, hoping to get your thoughts on the whole points choice and status matching. I'm having a hard time deciding the best place to secure my points. I currently have 28 points with Royal Caribbean and 109 with Celebrity, one cruise with webinars. I have these following cruises booked. In March, I'm going on Celebrity in a concierge stateroom. October, Royal Caribbean in a Crown Loft stateroom. And then Celebrity Magic Carpet Sky Suite. If I did my math right and understand correctly, I would have 72 points with the Royal Caribbean and 254 with Celebrity after these upcoming cruises. Couple notes. I do drink some, but not a ton. However, hitting Diamond and getting the 4 free daily drinks after another cruise would be great. If I went with Celebrity, do the few drink coupons get provided in my status match when we reach Diamond status? Ooh, okay, let me start. There's more to this question here, but let me stop you right there. This is a very common misconception. No. So, you have Crown and Anchor Society, right? Royal Caribbean. You have Captain's Club, Celebrity. You get status matching between the two. So let's say, I'll make this easy for everybody listening, since I think most of us are Royal Caribbean fans. If you have Diamond status in Crown and Anchor Society, and you status match to, I believe it's Elite, with Captain's Club, cool. When you go on a Celebrity cruise, you do not get your Royal Caribbean perks. You get the Celebrity perks of Elite. And in Elite, they don't have the 4 daily drinks. They have a really lame happy hour that occurs in one bar for a couple of hours. It's like the old Diamond happy hour, if you guys remember that one. So you don't get any of your Crown and Anchor benefits sailing Celebrity. The perks and the amenities are separate, siloed programs. The difference is you're able to status match. So if you had 0 points to Celebrity, but it were Diamond and Royal Caribbean, you would be able to instantly get Elite status with Celebrity. Hope that makes sense. All right, back to Andrew's question. After also getting, I have 109 points of Celebrity after 1 balcony cruise in 2021, and by watching all the webinars, taking surveys, it seems like a waste to not get those points when I can. Hoping this isn't too much information. If you have a few minutes in your busy schedule to give me your thoughts, I'd love to hear them. Love listening to your podcast. Yeah, so this is interesting, and I was thinking about your bigger question about, where should you put your points? I mean, ultimately, I would just say, whichever program you have a higher status in would make sense. And it seems to me you're probably better off with Royal Caribbean. Now, you do have 2 Celebrity cruises coming up, but still, I mean, obviously you can, with points choice, you can now, transfer those points back to Royal Caribbean. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. I would probably tell you, whichever program you have a higher status in, because obviously the points mean different, like the amount of points mean different in Celebrity versus Royal Caribbean. But with Royal Caribbean, I think it doesn't matter, because if you earn all your points in Celebrity, right, and then status match back to Crown and Anchor, you can get Diamond that way, right, versus going to Royal Caribbean and status matching back to Celebrity, getting, Elite or whatever on their side. I just think the only logic is whichever program you are higher up in, both in points and tiers, I would go in that route. And obviously, the Celebrity points are different because they calculate it based on not only the nights of your cruise, but what kind of room you're in and that kind of thing. That's why the numbers are completely different. But whichever ladder you're higher up in, whichever rung you've gotten higher in, I would just lean in that one and then status match back and forth as you see fit would probably be the best bet. It's probably not as critical, I would say, as you might think, because of the fact that you can now earn, you can, just pick one program and essentially it'll work itself out in the wash. So good email, good question though. And thank you to everybody for checking out this episode of the Royal Caribbean Blog Podcast. If I can answer your emails, you can always email me, matt@royalcaribbeanblog.com, matt@royalcaribbeanblog.com. Until next time, I'm Matt. We'll talk again real soon.